Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vardhan, and I'm super excited to be here on Edureka Live with you guys. In today's session, I will show you how Selenium and Jenkins can be used together to achieve continuous testing in the DevOps lifecycle. And the best part about today's session is that it's going to be a demonstration, right? So I'm going to show you a demonstration of how Selenium and Jenkins can be used together to achieve continuous testing in the DevOps lifecycle. So by the end of the session, you'll also know why Jenkins is one of the best DevOps tools, and you'll understand what role it plays in continuous testing. My guess is that everybody attending this session are aware of these key terminologies like Selenium, DevOps, Jenkins, and continuous testing. Okay, and these will be the topics that I will be covering in today's session. I'll first of all give you an introduction to what is Selenium, what is DevOps, and what is the role that Selenium plays in the DevOps lifecycle. And after that, I will get to the main topic of today. That is how Selenium and Jenkins can be used together to achieve continuous testing in the DevOps lifecycle. And I will finish off today's session by giving you a demonstration on the same. I will be creating a test case using Selenium and build jobs using Jenkins to achieve continuous testing. Let me just go to the next slide and get started today. Selenium is basically an open source tool which automates web browser tests, all right? And it's probably the best and it's the most popular tool, and it's widely adopted for automating test scripts, and because of that reason, it has found its place in the DevOps lifecycle. And there are three important reasons why Selenium is the best among other automation testing tools, and those three reasons are its programming language support, its web browser support, and its operating system support. So when it comes to programming language support, you can write Selenium scripts in all of these popular languages like Java, Python, Perl, Ruby, C#, or even PHP. And when it comes to web browser support, you can perform cross-browser testing. Now, cross-browser testing is the act of performing tests in different web browsers, right? So you can perform tests on Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, and Safari. You have comfort in that way. And most of all, Selenium can also be used on all of these operating system platforms like Windows or Mac or Linux. So yeah, that's the biggest benefit, right? So you have three important advantages. It has programming language support across all these languages. You have web browser support and also operating system support across all these platforms. So these are the three main reasons why it stands out as an automation testing tool and why it's the best among all the other automation testing tools. Now, having said so much about Selenium, let's see what is DevOps and see what is the need for the DevOps methodology. So DevOps is a software development approach which involves continuous development, continuous testing, continuous integration, continuous deployment, and continuous monitoring of the software throughout its development lifecycle. And in today's world, DevOps is the most effective means to develop software applications because it overcomes the limitations of agile development. Agile development, helps us develop software quickly, but the problem is there's no agility in operations, meaning the act of deploying to production and monitoring those operations is still not fast. And that's where DevOps scores over agile development, right? In DevOps, there's agility both in development and in operations. And you can ask how. And the answer to that is, even after the application is actually developed and deployed, it's continuously monitored, and the bug fixes and the updates are continuously integrated. And there's a handshake between the dev and the ops. So that's the advantage that DevOps has when you compare it with agile development. And if you can see the image over here, you can see that on the left-hand side, we have all the operations and activities performed by the development team, right? Let's call it the development activities. And then on the right side, you have all the operation activities. We have the activities like deployment, operation, and monitoring over here, right? So any application that needs to be developed, it would first be developed in small sprints, right? The entire software would be developed and released in smaller sprints and smaller cycles where the planning, coding, building, and testing would be done, and then that would be deployed, right? It would be deployed to production, and then that would be operated, and then it would be monitored for performance. Now, when this is done, ideally what would happen is the DevOps engineers, they would get to know what are the bugs and they would get to know what are the flaws in the software before the clients or the customers, because the DevOps tools would immediately notify them. The DevOps engineers would know immediately what the bugs and the flaws are, and they can get started with fixing those bugs, right? as and when there's the next release where they'll be deploying the new features, at that time they can also fix all these bugs and release them all together. So that's what is the handshake over here, right? So you can see an arrow that goes across here to the next cycle. So once one cycle of DevOps is done, we start the next cycle where the next set of features and the bug fixes of the first set of features, those are done. The planning is done, coding is done, building is done, it's tested properly, and then it's deployed to production. And once it's deployed to production, it's operated on, and again its performance is monitored, and again the cycle continues. So it goes back to planning, and yeah, this cycle is basically never ending. And what helps this cycle stay there is the integration aspect. So once it's tested, it's integrated with the existing framework, right? Before deploying to production, this integration is the most important aspect. And yeah, that's the whole benefit of DevOps, and that's the strength of DevOps. I'm pretty sure that you people have understood DevOps by now. Because what I'm going to show next is I'm going to talk about the DevOps tool that we are going to use to achieve continuous testing, right? And that's where Selenium fits. So today's session is about continuous testing, and Selenium's role in DevOps lifecycle is right here, testing. So this is a no-brainer. Everyone would know that Selenium fits in the continuous testing phase. But what you people might not know is that we have to use tools like TestNG and Jenkins along with Selenium to achieve continuous testing. So the continuous testing phase, it involves these three tools, right? So we use Selenium for creating our test cases and to get detailed reports of those test cases, whether they've passed or failed and how long it took to execute that test. All those details would be obtained with the help of TestNG. So TestNG is a framework which can be used along with Selenium to perform automated testing. And to perform continuous testing, we use Jenkins. So Jenkins is basically going to automatically schedule your tests, and it's going to run those tests. And if any of those test cases fail, then it's going to send you email notifications. So that is the role of Jenkins, right? So automation testing is achieved with the help of Selenium and TestNG. But the very act of continuous testing can be achieved only when Jenkins is involved. And that's the power of Jenkins. And that's why it's one of the best DevOps tools out there. And it's also one of my favorite DevOps tools. That's about this slide. Now, moving on, we have now reached the main topic for today. That is how Selenium, TestNG, and Jenkins work in harmony to get continuous testing up and running in your DevOps lifecycle, right? So to achieve continuous testing, we have 5 different steps. And the first step would be to create a test case with Selenium on your IDE. Okay. Now what I've done is I've used Eclipse IDE because that's again my favorite, and it's one of the best tools there. But yeah, you can create the same on either NetBeans IDE or IntelliJ, or yeah, we have a number of them like Microsoft Visual Studio. You can create your test case on any of them, and once you've created your test cases, you have to convert them into a testng.xml file. Okay. The reason you're converting them into a testng XML file is so that you can execute multiple test cases at the same time, and also so that you can execute those XML files through Jenkins, because you cannot ask Jenkins to instantiate an instance of Eclipse and then run your program through Eclipse, right? So Jenkins does not work that way. So Jenkins, what it's going to do, when you have the files, it's going to execute those files with the help of your command prompt, right? So that's what Jenkins does, and that's why you have to create an XML file which is executable. And if you want to create an XML file that is executable, you have to create a Windows batch file. Now, I'm pretty sure that you guys all know Windows batch file, but if there's anyone that doesn't know Windows batch file, it's a simple executable file which can have a set of commands that which you usually feed to your command prompt. Suppose there are a set of commands that you type in your command prompt to achieve certain operations. Then those set of commands can be specified as a list in your Windows batch file, and when you just execute the Windows batch file or you double click on the Windows batch file, those set of commands will be automatically executed in the command prompt. So that's the role of a Windows batch file. And when we have this XML file which would have all the test cases, and when it has all the details of which test cases needs to be executed, you can straight away achieve test automation, and that test automation can be achieved with the help of Jenkins. So that's where we are going to step number 4. Okay, now this is where Jenkins comes into the picture, and you can build Jenkins jobs by executing those batch files. And the best part about Jenkins and the very act of continuous testing is step number 5, where you can schedule jobs to be built at certain times during the day, and also you can configure those email notifications whenever any test case passes or any test case fails. Well, actually, you get email notifications only when your test case fails, right? But if once your test case fails, and the first time when your test case is back, running, that time you will get a notification saying your test case that your build is again successful. So mainly, it's basically the email notification is used to let you know that your test case has failed and there's a major bug or a major flaw in your code. So these are the 5 important steps that are involved in achieving continuous testing. Well, next is going to be a very interesting part of the session where I'm going to go and show you a live demonstration of how the entire life cycle works. Right, I'm going to show you a demonstration of how to create a test case on Selenium, right, on Eclipse IDE, and then convert it into a TestNG XML file, how to create it, and build your Jenkins job and schedule. Hands-on, I'll be creating my test cases with Selenium and TestNG and building those with Jenkins. Yeah, this is my Eclipse IDE, right? This is the code that I'm going to execute. Okay, so this is a very simple code, and what I'm doing here is I'm first of all performing dynamic tests on 2 websites, that is Amazon.in and in Facebook.com. Right, I'm trying to log into Facebook and I'm trying to search something on Amazon.in's web page. So the entire code block is divided. The entire code is divided into these blocks, and in the first block, I'm setting my Chrome driver, right? And the command to do that is webdriver.chrome.driver. This basically is to indicate my WebDriver to run my tests on my Chrome browser driver. Now, in case I want to execute the same tests on either Mozilla Firefox, then I can use WebDriver.GeckoDriver, because GeckoDriver is the driver used for running the tests on Mozilla Firefox, and that is only up till that's only from Selenium version 3, right? From up until Selenium version 2, we were using Firefox was default. You didn't have to use any browser driver. You only had to use it for Chrome driver. But from version 3 onwards, you have to use Gecko driver. So that's the thing, and you have to also specify the path where that browser driver of yours is present. So mine is present in this path, so I've specified that. And the next line I'm creating an object for my Chrome driver. All right, and then the next line is a simple line println statement, which is asking me to print this: hi, welcome to Edureka's YouTube live session on Selenium WebDriver. So the next block of my code is all about navigating to Amazon.in, right? So this is where my actual test starts. I'm navigating to Amazon.in, and I am implementing an implicit wait over here. I'm implementing an implicit wait of 5 seconds. And when I say implicit wait, there's a difference between implicit wait and explicit wait. So a lot of people have that doubt. So the difference is implicit wait. When you say implicit wait, you're asking your WebDriver to wait for 5 seconds after you have fetched that particular web page or a website, right? And an explicit wait is nothing but a wait where you're asking your WebDriver to wait until a specific web element has loaded on the web page. So that's the difference between the two. And yeah, when you've done these 2 things, I have the next code block in which I'm specifying my WebDriver to find the element of search box on Amazon's page, right? So just like every e-commerce site, Amazon has one search box where we can search for the list of products that they have. So you can search for those elements by using the driver.findElement command. Okay, when I've located that search box, I can send some text. So in my case, I'm using the send keys command to send Nike shoes, because I want to search their repository for Nike shoes, right? And I'm locating the search box with the help of by.id locator technique. Okay, we have 8 different locator techniques, and I've used some of them in my code. So for my search box, I've used by id. I've located, this is the ID of the search box. I've located it like this, and I've sent the keys of Nike shoes. Then in my next line, I've said driver.findElement by XPath. Okay, so XPath is one of the best ways to find your elements that are there on the web page, because XPath is the most stable. Most of the time, you will not have the ID and the name that we have here. All these locator techniques will not be there all the time, right? Only sometimes you have them. But XPath is something that is a standard that is there for every single element, compulsorily by default on every web page. So I've used the XPath to find the search option, and then I'm performing an operation of click. So Nike shoes would then be searched on Amazon.in. Then I would go to the results page, and then I'd navigate to the Amazon.in. right? And how am I doing that? By this command, driver.navigate. So this would ask my web driver to navigate back to Amazon.in page, then get the page title, and that is done by this command, driver.getTitle. So this would fetch the page title of Amazon.in and store it in a variable called title, which is of type string, and that would be printed in this println statement. Okay, it says page title is, and we have it here. And the final the block of code in my code is that of navigating to facebook.com, right? I navigate to facebook.com, and then I find the element first of all, that is the email ID field, right? And then I'm sending keys abcd@gmail.com. Now this is a very this is a bogus email address. I'm finding that email box, and I'm sending this key, this email address, and then I'm finding the element of password. Correct? I'm doing both by using by.name locator technique, and I'm sending the keys 1234 for the password field, and I'm going to the next line, that is the driver.find element. Here I would locate the login button, and I'm locating it with the help of by ID element locator technique, and the operation I'm doing here is click. All right. So here the operation is send keys, and here it's click. So when I click, of course, this is going to fail. The login is going to fail, and right and when my login fails, I have asked my driver, my web driver, to quit. So that is achieved by driver.quit. Okay, and the thing to note is I've asked an implicit wait of 60 seconds. That's because Facebook takes quite some time to log in, and especially if it's wrong credentials, it would take a little longer. And you would actually see my web driver. You would see it in my web driver that my login has failed, and then my driver quits after that. So that's the thing. All right. So let me just quickly save this and execute this code and show you how the test works. Okay. Now, if the test case works here, if the script is all working, then we can straight away build, create a TestNG XML file and build that job on Jenkins. So yeah, our Chrome's instantiated, Amazon.in, Nike shoes into the text box, and then the search option should be clicked on next. Yeah, that happens there. And then these are the shoes that they have, Nike shoes. And then I should navigate back to Amazon.in now. There you go. Navigating to Facebook.com. Credentials are fed, login is clicked, and yeah, it should close once it shows that my facebook.com is failing to load. Right, when my login is unsuccessful, it should end. Yep, there you go. And yeah, that's how your test case gets completed. So now let me just quickly show you the results of this test case. All right. So first of all, this is the result. Okay, it says the default test that was run is 1. There were 0 failures and 0 skips. My code is run successfully, and these were the two println statements that I had specified. I had said, hi, welcome to Edureka's YouTube live session. I had said that, and then I had asked for the page title to be printed, and this is the page title of Amazon.in. This is printed, and it says passed Jenkins test. Okay, so the Jenkins test that you see here, this is the name of the method of my in my code. Okay, now as you can see here, I have a method that is Jenkins test, and I've annotated this method with @test. Now whenever you annotate your method with this method or any method with @test, it would indirectly convert it into a TestNG test. Okay, so that's the indication. You can you would it would automatically suggest you to import the TestNG packages. When you import those packages, you can just execute this test as a TestNG test. Since I have my code ready, what I have to do next is I have to create a testng.xml file, right? So that I can execute this, so that I can execute this from the command line. But before that, let me show you how to create a testng.xml file, because some people might get they'll be worried and they would say that they don't know to create it. But let me tell you that it's very simple. So this is the project of mine. This is my project where the code is present. This is the package name, and this is the class name. All right, this is my method name. So if you want to create a testng.xml file of this particular code, just click on the class of yours, right click, you will have an option of testng. Click on that and say convert to testng. When you do that, it would automatically create, it would give you the default structure. Here you can control which classes you want to execute. Now, first of all, it would ask you for the name of your suite, right? The suite I want to execute, the name of that is suite itself by default, and my test name is again test. I'm just using the default names here. And in my case, I'm only executing one class. So that's why you see just one class in under tags here. Now here is where the benefit of TestNG comes in. Okay, if you want to execute multiple test cases, then you can specify you can hit enter and add another tag and say class name, and you can enter the name of the class which you want to execute and say which package that class is present in. Okay, and if you can see here, it says Selenium YouTube demo dot Selenium YouTube demo. Now that's because the structure this is in is package name dot class name. Okay, the XML file would execute this class which is present inside this package. So if you want to execute any other class, you would have to first specify the package name where it's present, something like this, where the symbol is, and after that you would have to have a dot and say the class name which you want to execute. Okay, so that's if you want to do it, but since I don't have any, I'm just going to remove that, and let me just click on finish. And when I hit finish, it's okay. It's asking me, it already exists. Do you want to overwrite it? I would say okay. That's because I created one earlier. And yeah, this is that XML file which we have to which we just created. All right. So the same XML file is present over here. This is my path inside this project directory of mine. And if I execute, if I run this XML file, I would get the same output that I got when I executed that time, right, from this code. So it's going to be the same output. So I don't want to waste time showing you this, but what I want to actually show you is how to execute this XML file from the command prompt, because if it works from the command prompt, then it's going to work through Jenkins, correct? So for that, let me first of all open the directory where my code is present. Okay, now this is the code. It's present in my workspace and under this project folder of mine. Okay, now to execute this through command prompt, I have to first of all open my command prompt and let me navigate to this path. So let me say cd workspace slash Selenium YouTube demo. Yeah, that's the folder. Now I'm inside this folder, and this is the XML file that got created, right? This is the one that I created just now. And if I want to execute this TestNG file, then I have to give the command java org dot testng dot testng space the file name. That is, in my case, it's testng.xml, correct? Now, this is ideally to execute your XML file, but this will not work because in my Eclipse I have specified the path of my class. My Eclipse knows where my class path is, and my Eclipse also knows where my dependencies and where my jars are. However, since I'm executing this through the command prompt, my command prompt does not know where my class path is, and it does not know where my associated libraries and dependencies are. So I have to specify that also as parameters to my command prompt. I have to specify that in this line. So to do that, let me just go back and add it in the parameters here. Let me say flag class path and add the path of these folders. Right, it's there in this path. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here. Okay, and I'm going to paste it here, say slash and put bin, put a semicolon. I'm going to paste the same path again. I'm going to say lib and I'm going to say colon, and this time I'm going to say asterisk. One thing that you got to note is in the command you can see that this is the XML file that needs to be executed, and this is the syntax to execute that command org.testng.testng. Do note that in the syntax, the TestNG over here has T in capital and even NG in capitals. All right. So note the syntax, and along with the code, along with my Java command, I've specified the class path of where my class path is. Right. My class is present inside the bin folder. Correct. So always your class path will be present inside the bin folder by default. So if you go to bin, this is the package name, and my class is present over here. So I've specified that in my command, and I've also specified the path to lib. Now, in my lib, I have all the associated jars and dependencies. All these are present over here. So I've specified the list of these jars, and I've said that they are in the lib folder. Okay, now there's an asterisk that has to come here, right? Yeah. So the reason I've given asterisk is because there are multiple jar files in this folder, correct? It's not just one jar file. Now, since there are multiple, we have given asterisk. So anyways, let me hit enter and show you that this is how the XML file will be executed from your command prompt. You can see that the same set of execution steps are being executed, and the same web browser is opening, right? Here at amazon.in, Nike shoes, And yeah, the same thing is going to happen, but I don't want to waste your precious time by showing you this. Instead, what I can do is I can straight away just show you the result later, and I can in fact show you how it works through Jenkins, right? I can show this build through Jenkins, because at the end of the day, that's the prize, right? That's what we want to achieve: continuous testing, right? So it's just going to anyways end now, so I'm going to minimize this browser driver. Yeah, and you can also see that the same parameters are here, right? The same results, the println statements that have been that I had specified, they have been executed. They are visible here, and it also says the total number of tests run in web 1, 0 failures, the same output that we got in Eclipse. So we've got the same thing over here. So that's good news. Now, now that our command is executing successfully through the command prompt, what we need to do is we need to we need to create a Windows batch file, correct? And once we create a Windows batch file, we can straight away get it to be executed through Jenkins. So I'm just going to go back to the directory here, and I'm going to create the Windows batch file over here. Now, the command is again present over here. I've written it already just to save time, just to save some time, and you can see that it's the same command that I executed on the command prompt. Okay, but there's a small difference here. The only difference is that I have not specified the path, correct? The path that was supposed to be here, I have not specified that. That's because the batch file is going to be present in this directory itself. And yeah, my command prompt does not need to look anywhere else, and it can just straightway execute the batch file from this window. So same thing with even library, right? The lib folder, I have not specified anything else. I've just specified the path. I've specified the folder where all my dependencies will be present. So if you want to, first of all, save it as a batch file, then you have to click on File, hit Save As, and specify the name that you want it to be saved as. So let's say I want to give the name File Command, and to save it as a batch file, we need to give it inside double quotes, right? And say dot bat inside double quotes. Now this would create a new file, new Windows batch file. So I'm just gonna click on save, and as you can see, a new file has come up here. I'm gonna close this, and now if I execute this file command, this file, I'm gonna run the same steps that was run through this command prompt. Let me show you that. Let's say, right? So automatically command prompt was opened, and then the test is being executed. So the same thing is gonna happen. So what we have to do now is we have to get Jenkins to execute this this file command, right? This file. So for that, we have to first of all launch our Jenkins server, and we can launch our server from our browser. So I'm just going to say localhost 8080, and when I hit enter, I am on to Jenkins. So login, and this is my Jenkins dashboard. Okay, and yeah, these are the list of projects that I have on my Jenkins dashboard. And if you want to create a new project or you want to build a new job, you have to first of all click on new item over here and enter the name of your project. So I'm going to say YouTube demo of Selenium and Jenkins. All right, that's the name I'm going to give. I'm going to say it's going to be a freestyle project and click on OK. And it's asking for description. Well, this is not really needed, so you can just ignore this. You can give it if you want. It's optional though. So, but what you have to actually set is in the advanced option under general settings, you have to click on advanced and set the path of where your workspace is. So you have to check on this checkbox here, use custom workspace, and feed the path where your where Jenkins has to look for the executable file. So my executable file, this is which is file command, is in this directory. So I'm going to copy this path, go back to Jenkins and paste it right here, and I'm going to apply. All right, I'm going to save that, and the next thing that we got to do is we have to come to build triggers. But the build triggers here is for scheduling your jobs, and this is something a little complicated. So I'll talk about the other steps and then come back to this. Okay, so after setting your path over there, quickly go to build and click on add build step. Okay, and now you should specify what you want to execute. If you want to execute a batch command, you got to say execute batch command. If you want to execute a shell, you should say execute shell. Well, if you're using Linux, then you might be probably executing a shell file or an ant file or something like that. But for Windows, it's a Windows batch command which you want to execute, correct? Okay. So I'm going to just click on execute Windows batch command, and you have to specify the file that needs to be executed. So Now what Jenkins would do is it would navigate to this path using my command prompt, and the file that needs to be executed, that needs to be fed here. The file name is file command, right? So I'm going to say file command dot bat. So it's going to execute this statement inside this directory through my command prompt. That's what Jenkins would do. And let me go down and add this post build actions. Okay, what should happen when a build, when a job is built? Okay, so what happens there? That's what is controlled over here. And in our case, if you want to achieve continuous testing, I told you that you need to get email notifications and be informed if any of your test case fails or if there's some faulty hardware or faulty software. So if you want to be notified, then you have to click on this add post build action and enable email notification here, right? You can see the option here, right? So click on email notification and specify the recipients that you want to receive. Supposing I'm just going to put my email over here. So I'm going to say apply and I'm going to save these settings. Now that you've configured email notifications, we have to first make sure we have to enable our email notifications. We have to configure SMTP to gmail.com. So that would be done through your Jenkins dashboard. So if you go to your Jenkins dashboard, go to manage Jenkins, right? So click on manage Jenkins, go to the first option of configure systems, click on that. And when you're inside this, you need to scroll down right to the bottom. All right. So for me, I've already set these settings, so I don't have to set anything again. But for those of you who are going to use Jenkins for the first time, do note these changes. Okay. Oh, sorry, this is external email notification. You have to actually come down here to email notification, right? You have to come down here and set your SMTP server here. Okay. So SMTP basically stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. And if you want to enable the mail transfer protocol from Jenkins, you have to specify the server here in this format. If you're going to use Gmail, then you got to say smtp.gmail.com. And similarly for any other email service, you got to specify that in this format. Okay. And when you specify that, you have to click on Advanced, and you have to check this checkbox of use SMTP authentication. So by default, it would not be checked, and these would not come up initially. So the moment you check on this, the username and password would come up, and you have to enter the credentials of this user, right, of this instance. Whatever the email ID and password was, you have to enter that over here, and click on use SSL. And finally, you have to enter the SMTP port number that it's hosted on. So by default, it's 465. Well, that's what I've given, but you can also look it up on Google, and there's actually another port on which SMTP runs. So there are two ports. This is 465. If you want to run it on 465, well and good. If you don't want to, then you can just look up on Google and find which is the other port that you want to run it on, and specify that here. And then you have to specify the reply to address. Okay. Now, if you don't want people to reply to the email notification that that we receive from Jenkins, then you can just say no reply @gmail.com. Otherwise, you can just put in the email address you want the reply to go to from the email notification. So you can specify that here, and the character set here, it's it's predefined as UTF-8, so you don't need to worry about this. So if you want to test the email, then you can just click on this test configuration, and you can check the mail that you can just add the email address you want the test email to go to. So I'm going to say I'm going to add my own email address over here, and I'm going to click on test configuration. Now let's see what it says. Okay, it says email was sent successfully. So I'm just going to quickly go to my email address. I'm going to, yeah, so this is the email that is sent to me, right? This is the test email number 3 from Jenkins. So this shows that my test email is successful, and this is also indication that my email notification would run successfully. Okay, now this is the confirmation. So it's highly important that you will test once before you are rest assured that you will get email notification. So once you've done this, you just need to save the changes. Okay, and then go back to your project. So this is my project, right? And click on build now. When you click on build now, obviously the build is scheduled here and it's running. So you can just click on this build number 1 to see what's the status. Right, this is the build status, and you can check the console output to see what's happening, whether it's getting executed successfully or not. As you can see, it says the first println statement has been printed, and it also says page title, and it has shown Amazon's page title. But there's one thing strange over here. that is strange over here that did not happen previously. When I executed the same through the TestNG XML file through command prompt, and when I executed this through Eclipse, that happened, and something did not happen over here. See, Jenkins is basically a web server, right? So it's a server where multiple jobs would be built, and it would all be running there. In a working day, typically there would be 100 jobs that would be built, and when there are so many jobs that are being built, you cannot afford to have any overhead and allow any server crash. So to avoid all these things, we just use a headless server, correct? We use a headless server. We have something called as HTML unit driver for that. So that's one thing. If you want to achieve headless server via your Eclipse or via your command prompt, you can use HTML unit driver. But otherwise, you can just use one of the Chrome drivers or Firefox drivers. And similarly, if you want to execute through Jenkins, by default you don't get the GUI, correct? So the browser doesn't pop up. That's because of this very reason, that it's headless, and to avoid any overhead on the web server of Jenkins, because it would cause it would cause server crashes. That's the thing. Now that we've seen our output here, and now that we've seen that this is how we get our this is how we get the results. Let's see how we can schedule test cases using Jenkins. Okay, now for that we have to again go to our project and go to configure. Okay, so under configure, we need to come down where we need to I told you earlier that we need to come to build triggers, right? So under build triggers, we've got to check on this text box of build periodically. So when you check on this, you can specify the time format in cron format. Okay, you should specify the rule in cron format as to when you want it to be executed. Now for those of you who don't know what a cron format is, then you can just click on the help box on the right side. You click on that, you can learn the format it comes in, right? The rule is basically in this way. So you have 5 different parameters. The first one specifying the minute, the second specifying the hour of the day, the third one specifying the day of the month, the fourth specifying the month, and the final one specifying the day of the week. Okay, so let me show you a simple cron rule over here. So the cron rule that I'm going to use is something like star 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 star. Asterisk basically means every minute, basically means every or anything or everything. So that's what it means, or all. So that's what is the actual definition. And in our case, it basically indicates to build the job at every minute of every hour of every day in the month, and every month, and every single day of the week. We have complete flexibility over here, so we can choose when we want to schedule this for. So you can do it this way. You can give this kind of rule, or if you want to see, typically how it happens in organizations, especially in mine, is that once before the working day, once before our working hours start, we have one job built, right? And we get the reports. I mean, we shouldn't get any reports. If we get any report, then it means that we're in trouble. So we get one set of we basically build one job in the beginning of the day, and one job towards the end, at the end of the working hours, right? So once at 9:30 in the morning, and once at 7:30 in the evening. So we do something like that, and you can set some rule like that. So in our case, if you want to set something for so right now it's 6:15, right? So if you want to set something for say 6:17 or 6:18, then we can do that by specifying the hour and minute here. So the minute is going to be 6:17, and if I want to run it for 6 p.m., then I should probably enter 18. Now that is because this is going to be in hours format. You cannot specify AM or PM, so that's why you should specify in hours what you want to execute this at. So let me just quickly save this and verify and show you that at 6:17 there's going to be a new build, that would be a new job that would be built. Okay, so we've got a good 10 seconds left. Okay, so around 5 seconds after 6:17, we've got our build scheduled, and if I just click on this, you can see that the build is happening, and if I go to console output, you can see that the same set of operations are happening, and the same test case is being executed, bar the GUI, correct? So it's in a headless format. That's what this is, and yeah, you'll get a similar output. But yeah, this is how you build, and this is how you schedule jobs to Jenkins, and this is how you make things easier. So what Jenkins does is it's brought complete automation to execution of test cases, and it has removed the manual effort of a person to manually sit till the entire test case gets over, or to manually click the test case to begin to run and do it at different times during the day. And yeah, so it's a really good tool, right? So it's one of my favorite DevOps tools. Jenkins is really good, and there's so much more about Jenkins. There we are. But there's one more thing that I want to show you before we finish today's session, and that is of email notification, right? I did not show you that. You did not get an email notification so far because none of my builds failed, right? All my jobs got built successfully. So if I want an email notification, I have to manually fail one of my scripts. So I'm just going to go back to my Eclipse, go to my code, and let me comment one of the lines. So I'm just going to hide this line. Okay, I'm going to comment this. I'm going to save this, and again go back to Jenkins and execute this job, right? Build this job again. I want to say build now. And when you say build now, this job is started, right? And yeah, it's already failed. So you can see the color, right? It's red in color and it says failed. So if you go to console output, you can see that the total tests that were run were one, and there was one failure, 0 skips, and the error was execution of the Windows batch command was marked as a failure, and the email was sent to my email address. So let me just quickly go to my email address and show you that. I'll show you the kind of email that we got. Okay. Yes, build failed in Jenkins. YouTube demo of Jenkins and of Selenium and Jenkins number 3. And if you go here, you'll also get details of where you can see what the errors are. So if you click on this link, you will again go back to Jenkins host. You will see that this is the build number 3, and you can go here and see what was the command that failed, right? Where the problem was, all these things. So yeah, that's how you achieve automation. That's how you will be notified immediately when something's like grievously wrong in your code, right? So yeah, so that also brings an end to my session here. Yeah, thank you guys for being a part of the session. We will sure come up with more live sessions, and do subscribe to our channel and like and comment and share our videos so that you'll be notified of the same. Thank you. See you guys. See you soon. Happy learning.